Welcome back to the Creation Reformation YouTube channel. Today I'm showing you the great marshes of Barnstable, Massachusetts. And I'm clearly filming this audio after the fact because it was just so windy when I was actually there in September that it was hard to get my voice over it. But I did go out to the great marshes in Barnstable. I found the marshes to be remarkably beautiful in their own way. A vast horizon of dead looking grasses isn't exactly a scenic place that people go out to vacation and visit, but they are remarkably beautiful and they house an abundance of biodiversity and wildlife. And the saltwater marshes in particular, I find to be worth a visit, especially if you are someone who wants to find some good wildlife. And my topic for the video is something called bioturbation. And I'm about to show it to you as I start to walk over to some of the muddy portions of the marshes. Of course, the marshes tend to be these long waterways of salt water that kind of cut through these dead grasslands. And they are very shallow, and this is where a lot of organisms live. And as we get closer, you're going to see all of these small burrows, these tiny holes in the mud that were made by crabs. And there are thousands and thousands of these holes in the mud. And as I continue to go along, you'll start to see crabs disappearing into their holes if you can look closely enough. And this is exactly what bioturbation is. Bioturbation is evidence of an organism's activity, especially their burrows and their movements. And when an organism buries itself into the mud and then that mud becomes fossilized, evidence of the organism's activity there is preserved. You can see the markings there that the organisms left behind. These burrows could just as easily get fossilized as the organisms that made them. And so this actually leads to a divergence in the creation model from the conventional model. So on my YouTube channel all the time, I talk about how our models align with so many processes and mechanisms, and we just differ on how quickly these things should happen. But with bioturbation, we get a split. If you are a creationist who believes that all of our rock layers in geology were laid down during the global flood, you wouldn't expect to find a lot of bioturbation because the rock layers get solidified so quickly that animals can't actually get in and make their mark. But if you believe that these layers were laid down over millions of years, slowly, one on top of the other, then there's plenty of time for organisms to get in and burrow and create bioturbation in the sediment. And so what has happened now is a couple of creation geologists, Leonard Brand and Art Chadwick mainly, have published a paper now where they're talking about how they've studied a wide array of geological layers in the fossil record looking for evidence of bioturbation. And in fact, 97% of the geology they're looking at has no evidence of bioturbation, which is not shocking if you are a creationist who believes that there's no time for organisms to get in and mix up the sediment. But it is somewhat of a surprise if you believe those layers were laid down slowly, one at a time, over the course of millions of years, because it does not take millions of years for organisms to get in and mess things around, and create that bioturbation. So, of course, this isn't a dramatic overthrowing of the old Earth timeline. There are geological processes that can smooth out the layers and kind of remove the bioturbation. But the fact of the matter is that if you are an old Earth scientist, you believe those geological layers were laid out over millions of years, you would expect to see a lot more bioturbation than just 3%. So that paper link will be in the description. That is from the New Creation Journal, or sorry, it's called New Creation Studies, and that's a journal you can access on the New Creation blog by Art Chadwick and Leonard Brand. So go check that out if you want to read more on bioturbation and how it fits into a creation model. And that'll do it for me for now. But bioturbation is evidence of it all over the place, especially now with nowadays when there's organisms all throughout muddy areas in saltwater marshes and in freshwater sometimes too. So it's evidence that the Earth actually isn't too old because it's simultaneously evidence for the flood of Noah. So thanks for checking this out. Be sure to stay tuned for more content from the Creation Reformation YouTube channel, and I will catch you next time.